Hello and welcome to Roli Pulse brought to you by Roli Books. I am Chirag Thakkar and this is our special series of conversations on mental health in India in association with the Health Collective. Part of today's conversation on anxiety and living through the pandemic are Havovi Bhagwagar in conversation with Anand Zanane. Havovi is a psychologist and psychotherapist in private practice. She writes and speaks extensively in the media on mental health and works primarily in the field of traumatic stress. Anant is an independent journalist and works out of Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh. He worked as a broadcast journalist for more than a decade with NDTV in the states of Uttar Pradesh, Delhi, and Maharashtra. In his spare time, he advocates for queer rights and mental health and actively supports causes like nutrition for childhood cancer. So, welcome to Roli Pulse to both of you. Over to you, Anant.
Thanks, Chirag, for your introduction. And I'm glad that Roli Books and the Health Collective have come together to use this joint presence in social media to really amp up the various aspects of mental health that desperately need addressing in these times we live in. And I think, along with COVID 19, mental health is also a public health emergency in this country. And it's important to educate people at large about why they also need to prioritize this along with their physical health well being. And Hovobi, thank you so much for agreeing to have this conversation. And I'll just kick off this chat and let's start taming anxiety as much as we can. Uh, so, is it really okay to feel anxious, Hovobi, and tense and worried in these dystopian times and this pandemic?
Hi, Chirag, and hi, Anand. Thanks for having me here. This is a great platform. So I'm keen to speak about anxiety today. So is it okay to feel anxious and tense? I would say absolutely. If we have a viral pandemic, we've known from other pandemics about this, that anxiety becomes endemic. That means it becomes almost natural to feel it during these times. One cannot feel anything else except anxiety to a large extent because we are anxious about our survival during any pandemic. The first thing that we are anxious about is our health, the health of our loved ones, our survival, and then the way things are panning out now, finances and the way the economy is going. We are worried about a lot of things. Also, the way our brain is designed, right? Although we have gone through so many eons, the way our brain is designed, it's designed for survival. So whenever anything threatens our survival, our brains come immediately online and start wanting to protect us. And as a result of that, we experience a constant sense of vigilance, anxiety. And so you'll see that a lot of people say that, they are feeling much more alert than they felt earlier. They feel butterflies in their stomach. They can't sleep very well. Many of them are either eating too much or eating too less. This is because of the anxiety playing in the background. Many of us are seeing the pandemics, at least in the early parts, like a holiday, but the anxiety is definitely there in the background. And you rightly said that mental health is definitely something we need to look into, and it's as much a crisis as the pandemic. So it's natural, but I like that word you used, dystopian. I don't think it's yet dystopian. I feel that it's within our control right now. The way we behave today is going to decide how this reality pans out. And since we are living it right now, we can decide whether we want to be human about it, whether we want to, face it like a community, or we really want to turn against each other and make this about, religion or about competition. So I would say it's up to us. The way we strive to approach this pandemic will really decide how it pans out for us individually and for the entire humankind. So that's how it is.
Right. I stand corrected on my sort of wrong usage of the word dystopian, but I just,
No,
want to
it's not
ask.
wrong. It's interesting though. It's very interesting word that you've used. It could turn that way. Looking at the way things are going, it could turn that way.
Yeah, probably premature to use it at this point in time, but so much research now is being so widely quoted, so easily accessible. Everybody sort of name drops that they read something here in Lancet and some other peer-reviewed journal. But we're more than 4 months into this pandemic, and is there any research that you're saying that is sort of signaling the alarming spike in anxiety? Any statistics that you've really seen being tossed around on social media or otherwise?
Of course, there's a lot of pop psychology going on. We can't really pay attention to everything we read. But if we are reading from psychiatry journals, and we are reading what a lot of mental health publications are talking about, including the Lancet, they are researching the crisis of various populations. They are researching the crisis that's there, of course, in the frontline workers first, because they are facing the mental health, and the stress the most. So that's being researched by a group of researchers. And a lot of studies that we have to fall back on is also helping us understand what we need to study right now. So we know that the Lancet did some very powerful research during the SARS. And we do know that they have warned us that hypervigilance can continue even after the quarantine ends. So naturally, all mental health focus is on the anxiety and trauma that people are facing currently. And preliminary research is showing us that there is definitely a spike in anxiety in certain age groups and in certain populations. But something that we have pretty tangibly, we don't have tangible research in other areas. It's still being reviewed. What we do have fairly anecdotal and tangible research on is the rates of suicide, which have spiked tremendously between last year and now. So we know that there is almost a 50 to 60% jump in the rates of suicide between 2019 this time to 2020 now. And since the biggest change, of course, of this year has been the COVID crisis, we know that many of these deaths are related to that. So, which is why people are constantly saying this is a mental health crisis, because there's tangible reason for us to believe that people are taking this really badly and we need to do something about it. So, yeah, that's what at least the preliminary research is showing.
Yeah, and also I think anxiety is so layered and complex for it to sort of just be categorized in one silo. I think, for me, it's always been, a panic attack, and that's my only tangible experience of that. But clearly there's a lot more to it than just, panic attacks and other symptomatic stuff.
So, Anant, a lot of clients who come to my clinic are equally confused about the difference between, say, panic and anxiety. And many times people read all these terms online and they get thoroughly confused. So it's very easy to put the whole thing under the umbrella of anxiety and say, oh, I have anxiety, and now help, treat it for me, or help me understand it. So this is a suitable platform for me to help people understand that there's a difference between anxiety and fear, first of all. Everything is not anxiety, everything is not fear. Fear is, let's say I saw a fire break out in this room. I saw an electric spark and suddenly some fire came out from there. I'd feel fear because that's real and that's very tangible, something that's happening in front of me. And my first reaction will be in my body. I'll think of immediate danger and I'll think of leaving this room and running away from there. So when there is fear, we usually respond with escape behaviors. But this is not anxiety. We can't call this reaction anxiety. Anxiety is typically when we anticipate something happening. When we anticipate, for example, that we'll fail an interview, or we anticipate that we'll get bankrupt. Nothing is happening in the present, but we are constantly thinking it will happen. So anxiety usually will show up as muscle tension. It's going to show up in us avoiding things. If we are fearing a job interview, we will not prepare for it. So, or we will over prepare for it. So there is a lot of cautious and avoidant behavior that sort of comes around anxiety. And during a time of, say, a crisis like this, the COVID scenario, and if you see anxiety generically also, we'll see that anxiety comes along a spectrum. We can't say everybody is anxious because people will be somewhere on that spectrum. Some people will show mild levels of anxiety where there's some amount of sleeplessness, muscle tension, tightness in the body, that kind of thing, doubts about themselves. And then there are some people who are on the completely other end of the spectrum where anxiety takes on almost, you can say, diagnosable proportions, where the anxiety rises to the extent that we can think of it as requiring intervention from a professional. So so it can go from that completely mild extent right up to the level of a disorder. And you were talking about panic attacks. So we have anxiety disorders that we classify. Some of these are very commonly used in the media also, like we have panic disorder, we have social anxiety disorder. So these are types of anxiety disorders, and some of these anxiety disorders come along with panic attacks. So the first thing I do is I help a person understand that, or help myself also understand that, is the person going through anxiety, or has it gone to the other end of the spectrum, and we can diagnose it as a condition. So not all anxiety is the same, though it's used as a general umbrella term. We look at it very differently when we are seeing it through the lens of say a disorder. So that's how we would look at it.
No, I think that sufficiently answers that question. But also, I wanted to understand from you is, different people are worried and anxious for different reasons, and there's no one size that fits all in terms of a solution for any, anxiety issues at large. So, what groups of people are sort of more vulnerable to anxiety and are more likely to be affected by it, especially given the circumstances of this pandemic?
So we know now that the group that's the most vulnerable right now are people who had previous conditions, mental health conditions. So someone who was already under the care of a psychiatrist or a psychologist is likely to develop a secondary condition because, or an anxiety disorder because of the pandemic, because they're already, you can say, seeking help, and they are vulnerable. The second group of people who are the people who did not have mental health conditions before the pandemic, but were genetically vulnerable or compromised in some way. Those people start showing symptoms. Like we know a lot of people started displaying symptoms of obsessive compulsive disorder after the pandemic. Yeah, they had those sort of signs, but they didn't have the full blown condition until this pandemic hit. And I'm seeing more and more of those cases coming in, and a lot of psychiatrists talk about it as well. So that's of course the mental health, entire group. Then there is a group of people who don't have mental health conditions but are still vulnerable, are elderly, for example. Few weeks ago, I was conducting this talk with a group of people, the elderly, most of them were above 60. And it was a shocker to me, the kind of things they talked about. I never even thought about it that way. But the pressures they are facing are immense, because everybody in their home is constantly anxious about them leaving the house and going, taking care of their health. So many of the elderly have not been allowed to, have newspapers come in at home, have not been allowed to order any food from out, not been allowed to leave their homes and go downstairs and, chat up people that they used to. So they are, I think, at a quite high risk group for developing all kinds of mental health conditions. So we have to take a lot of care of them, not just care about them getting the virus, but also care of their mental health. The other, I think, a couple of groups that come to my mind are the people who are in the working class and who are in danger of losing their jobs. Yeah, they are a very high risk group for depression, suicide, and anxiety. That's another group that's a largest group of people that I see in my practice. And I would say among the clients I see every day, I'm hearing horror stories of either fear of being, the kind of stories they're telling me about others losing their job, or about not having enough money to last through the year, or how will they pay for their children's education, or their savings being completely, eliminated during this time. So that's another group. And the third group is, of course, our students, the youth, because their life is also hanging completely in balance. I was just reading somewhere that in India now, the rates of admissions to all these prime educational institutions has suddenly doubled, tripled. People, otherwise the kids would all go abroad to study, a lot of the population. Now they can't. So then, the bulk is coming here. The colleges are not prepared for the rates of admission they are getting. So a lot of students are waitlisted, not sure where their careers are going. It's many of them have been hanging in balance because they've come back from abroad. They don't know when they're going to return. So that's a third group that's fairly stressed out, I feel, during this time. And then the women. I think they are also the ones who we are going to see a lot of burnout coming in because of the additional pressures that the pandemic is bringing. So those are the groups I think that in fact, everybody needs some form of mental health care at this
Right.
time
Right.
and should be seeking it out.
Right. So what would you say to someone like me, who's from probably one of these groups, who's probably lost a job, is grappling with their anxiety levels? How do they arrest them before they become debilitating?
So, something that anxiety does to us is it sort of makes us so, it makes our brain overwork,
Hmm.
right? It puts us in a state of what we call as overthinking,
Hmm.
right? Which simply means that we are having thoughts that are not completely matching the reality of a situation. And then when we get anxious, very curiously, we do two things. We either keep looking to people to give us, reassurance, but the reassurance does nothing because
Hmm.
all you're doing is asking people, can you help me feel better? But even if they tell you a million things, you won't feel better until you do something about the situation. So one thing that we do when we get anxious is we keep asking for reassurance. And the
Hmm.
second thing we do is that we avoid taking corrective action.
Right.
So, for example, if we are worried that we're going to lose our job, a lot of people will spend time calling up their friends and talking about, their fears and their worries and their anxieties, but they're not going to talk about suitable action steps to take.
Right.
But when they are done with the call, they will not go and, improve their resume or do something to take corrective action towards that, because that's what anxiety does to us. It cripples us.
Hmm.
So if we learn to cope with the anxiety by having a more suitable, rational way of thinking, that I'm sure many people are losing their jobs, and there are a whole lot of business houses that are holding webinars, seminars, coaching to be able to find ways to work around this.
Hmm. Hmm.
Everybody is in the same boat, and anxiety is only going to prevent us from finding ways to get out of this crisis. We have to find ways,
Hmm.
and sometimes I feel that it's easier said than done, though.
Hmm.
It's times like these that teach us what we really want to do in life. So to sit back and take that time, minus the anxiety, to figure out what does life want from us,
Hmm.
and this is a suitable opportunity to do that.
So, Hovi, I think, we're all at the end of the day looking for solutions. And you said it's not just about important to share and vent to people about what you're feeling, but it's also about taking charge of that situation. So, can you leave us with some tips, some ways in which there is this way of cultivating some health seeking behavior, mental health seeking behavior in people? Can you leave us with some, some actionables on this?
Sure. So I would say, like I was telling you about the spectrum of anxiety, we know that there is mild anxiety. It can even go up to the level of a disorder. So if people are, first of all, seeing that they are experiencing depression, they're not able to get out of bed, for example, or do the things they can do, or they're getting so anxious that it's crippling them, and this lasts for over 2 weeks to 3 weeks, then they need to seek professional help.
Hmm.
If they wait for this to become worse, then then the level of professional help also has to start at a level of a crisis.
Hmm.
So seeking that mental health care from a professional early in the day is always helpful.
Hmm.
Of course, there are a lot of things one can do for themselves. First is there are apps available, but you can also do this for yourself. Find a way to think in a balanced manner. For example, asking yourself, like if I talk to an ex-boss, or I talk to my ex-manager or a friend about a job, they're going to laugh at me or they're going to reject me. These are the thoughts that anxiety typically produces in us. Shame. So asking ourselves, how likely is that to happen? And what's the worst that will happen? If the worst does happen, what are the coping skills I have with me? So I think the first thing as humans we need to understand is that the antidote to anxiety is our own resources within us. We forget that. We forget that each of us has within us a much more strength than any kind of crisis. So to search for that strength internally, to find it, to realize that you probably have coped with many crises in your life and you're just forgetting your coping skills of that time. So to draw on that internal strength is, I think, the most important thing to do. And of course, there are a number of other things externally that are possible, like practicing mindfulness every day. It just helps you to center, come back, and helps you to be in the moment, because anxiety is about thinking about the future and thinking what is the worst that's going to happen, and that will happen. So, mindfulness helps you to stay in the fairly safe future. Also, for anxiety, a couple of other things that I always recommend is stay with the facts.
Mm.
Don't read too much news, because that news consumption is, I think, the worst thing for anxiety. It's like adding gas to fire. So just read as much as is required in the day. One, maybe 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening. Don't make predictions, based on something you're reading, and then over exaggerate it. And the things that everybody has been saying, don't forward stuff unless you have verified it. Read a source or things only from verified sources. If you're reading about mental health, get that checked out by an expert rather than making your own assumption and own self-diagnosis about it. So these are some of the things that are helpful. Leading a healthy life, and by healthy life, I don't mean drinking gallons of water to make your immunity better. It just means sensibly taking precautions. The sensible precautions of masking and your sanitizing, distancing, the same things that everybody's been advising. Do it, and do it in proportion. I think that should be enough to keep our anxiety somewhat in balance.
So thank you so much, Ovi, for this really therapeutic chat. And it's an eye-opener for someone like me who has a very sort of limited understanding of anxiety and how it affects someone's mental health. It's immensely helpful. And I think I'll give my session with my therapist a miss this week. And I think it's important to educate ourselves. And that's where Roli and the Health Collective come together to create this ecosystem for these kinds of conversations to flourish online. And you can go onto the Health Collective site, go onto Roli Pulse. All these videos will be there, and you can at least get started so that you get all the help that you need to pull yourself together at these times.